All right, excellent. Let's start the webinar. It's 11 o'clock here in Cambridge in the UK. I will be talking today about integrating TOK with Group 5, that is mathematics subjects within the DP. The idea today is that I give a little bit of detail about how the TOK course functions as very much the hub of the diploma program. If you've seen these integration webinars before, you'll know exactly what format I'm going to follow. Obviously, everything is going to be adapted today for mathematics. The webinar will last approximately an hour. I will take questions at the end if people want to send them in, but also you can send in questions afterwards. So the idea is that I am talking here not just to TOK teachers, but to mathematics teachers who don't necessarily have a great deal of knowledge of the TOK course, perhaps new to the DP. And one of the challenges that faces you is how to draw on TOK, how to integrate TOK, because this is one of the challenges for DP teachers. So today I'm just going to very briefly go through what TOK actually is, because we can't assume that everyone knows what the course is. I'd like to talk about what we mean when we say integration and why it's a problem. Then I'm going to try and give you some specific ways to integrate maths with TOK. So I want to actually give you something tangible that you can take away with you after the webinar. So I'm going to look at what we call the 12 key concepts of TOK. This is a new addition to the TOK syllabus, 12 words and terms that are quite big concepts, which enable you to actually delve into TOK within any context, including mathematics. I'm going to look at a few key thinkers, not necessarily the most important maths thinkers that we might use in TOK, but maths thinkers who are accessible by virtue of their social media and other appearances, people that we can use quite easily. Then I'm going to talk about real life situations, so news events, issues, debates, etc., experiences of students that are going on in the world right now that we can draw on again. Then I'd like to talk about how to frame a TOK discussion. As I will say, any discussion is good. We like discussion, we like debate, we like to enable the students to offer their opinions, but we try to do it in a certain way in TOK, and I'll try and help you to understand what that way is. Then I will do a little bit of self-promotion, just outline some of the ways in which we support the TOK course and integration of TOK within the DP, the diploma program. I also want to mention the fact that we still offer school visits, not really happening at the moment, but hopefully next year it will. And I'd also like to give a sneak peek of the new theoryofknowledge.net website, which is going to launch in the next few days. We're very excited about that, very busy because of that. And I'll give you a quick look at the look of the new site. Okay, so just a big welcome to the webinar. As I say, if you've seen these integration webinars before, then you'll know exactly what the format is. It's very similar to the other ones that I've done. If you haven't seen these before, then we will take about an hour today to discuss this issue. My name is Michael Dunn. I am the creator of theoryofknowledge.net, which I've been running now for about 10 years. I won't go into too much details about what the site offers, but it's support, online support for the TOK course. As I also said, if you have any questions, you can send them my way via the messaging system here. Or you can just send them in via email afterwards if you don't want to ask now, if you don't have time to ask now. So I'll spend a little bit of time at the end of the webinar if anyone has any questions, hopefully trying to give some further sort of clarification on what I've talked about today. I will be sending out a debrief email afterwards. That normally comes out a couple of days after the webinar. I need to just get the video recording ready. And I will put my responses to some of the FAQs that come in as a result of this webinar. So that's how we're going to do it. Okay, so a quick introduction to TOK, to theory of knowledge. I mean, you probably know the basics, even if you're not a TOK teacher. It's a course. It's one of the core components of the DP. It should last around 100 hours, although that does vary a little bit between schools. It asks students to consider the nature of knowledge, where we obtain knowledge from, how we produce knowledge, what we do with knowledge, how it changes over time. And as you almost certainly will know, there's no exam in TOK. There is an essay that students write in the second year of the course. And now for the new syllabus, they also produce an exhibition in which they select 3 objects and link them to a prompt that they are given. And it's also meant to link to aspects of the course. I'll show you the structure of the course in a second. One of the key aspects of TOK is that it is also meant to bring together all the different strands of the DP and help them to help students get an integrated experience as they learn. Which, you know, why do we do that? Because life is all about making links and drawing on knowledge in one aspect and applying it to another. And so this is why the DP is great in itself, but needs a little bit of help. I think it needs to be integrated, and TOK is the best means of doing that. It's what makes the DP unique. It's what makes it, in my opinion, much better than any other course available for students of this age. But it's not easy. It's not easy to do it. We are all very overworked. So today I'm going to try to help you to come up with some ways in which you can draw on TOK. You can use it to integrate your subject with the rest of the DP. Another thing which I am making more of, and I think this works particularly well with the new TOK syllabus, which has just been introduced. I think the course aligns really, really well with what we call the 4 C's, which you've probably come across. The 4 C's are the 4 most important skills identified by business leaders, educational leaders, politicians, that students need to take with them from school and go into the real world. Those 4 C's are critical thinking, communication, collaboration, and creativity. And I honestly can't think of a better course within the DP or within any course that does that better, does that more effectively than TOK. So I make a big play that the aims of TOK for me and for my students, this is how I introduce the course, are the 4 C's. This is what we are trying to get you to do. We're trying to get you to think critically. We're trying to get you to communicate your ideas. We're trying to get you to collaborate. Now, by that, I don't just mean working with other students, but also being aware that there are other ways of producing knowledge that might be different to your own. So I think collaboration can mean that as well. And creativity, coming up with new forms of producing ideas, communicating ideas, understanding the world. So those 4 C's, I think, are quite interlinking. They overlap with each other. Okay. Excuse me. So that's a rough outline of what the TOK course is. This is what the structure of the course looks like. These are the 3 different elements of TOK. We've got the areas of knowledge at the top, which is, if you like, the categories of knowledge, the way in which we organize our ideas, our knowledge, our concepts, our understanding of the world. Those haven't changed since the last TOK syllabus. They're still, those 5 have always featured as a part of the course, although they, excuse me, they have been cut down a little bit. I don't need to read them through, you can see them for yourself. So those are the 5 areas of knowledge. On the other side of the diagram at the bottom, you can see what we call the optional themes. These are a little trickier to pin down and explain exactly what they are. The way I see them is that they are our sort of affiliations, our personal and social affiliations, which shape the way we make sense of knowledge. Okay, so your political affiliations might change the way you understand the world. Your religious affiliations might change the way you understand the world. How we use technology, how we use language, the extent to which we're connected perhaps to an indigenous society, all changes the way we process and understand the world. And those 2 aspects feed into the center of this diagram, which is the core theme. That's us, knowledge, and the knower. So within that, we consider slightly more personal ways that we all make sense of the world and produce our understanding via, for example, memory, via imagination, and so on. So that's the course. Now, how you kind of deliver that to your students is sort of the big question. So, you know, I will be talking how I do that today and linking it to mathematics. But here's what we're really talking about today: the integration problem. So, you know, this is what we're discussing today is one of the big questions of IB conferences. How do you integrate? How do you connect all the different strands of the diploma program? Who should be in charge of it? Should ordinary DP teachers be expected to do it? Should the TOK coordinator be in charge of it? Should the DP coordinator be in charge of it? Obviously, the best answer to that is that it's a combination of all three. But I think in different schools, different individuals play a stronger or a less active role in this process of integration. I personally think that the traditional way of teaching TOK has worked against integration. It's made it problematic. It's made it more difficult to integrate it with the rest of the DP. And by traditional, I mean teachers, and myself included, this is how I used to do it. Teachers traditionally went through in a kind of tick box way the different parts of the course. So you might start with history and work on that for a few weeks, move on to the natural sciences, maybe then look at language, maybe then look at indigenous societies, whatever it is, you go through that way. But I think the problem with that, one of the biggest problems, is that it shuts out other teachers from what you're doing. So, you know, the few weeks that you are doing history, for example, how are you going to get maths teachers contributing to that? How are you going to get biology teachers? How are you going to get sports science teachers contributing to those 4 weeks? And you can see if you teach in that way, there's actually very little time during the year when non-TOK teachers can actually play an active role in helping helping the students to understand the TOK course and the concepts that we look at. So that was one reason. There were other reasons as well, but that was one reason why I developed a different way of delivering the TOK course via questions. And the idea was that any teacher can answer those questions. And so I came up with 6 what I call big questions, all of which ask a different question about what we do with knowledge, where it comes from, and so forth. And it means that any teacher at any point in the year can get involved in TOK because they can all explore these questions. So what are these questions? Excuse me. So these are the original 6 big questions. These are what we look at in TOK. You can see them for yourself. Again, I don't need to read through them, but you can see that each one of them looks at a different aspect of knowledge and how it's produced. And you've got some questions there that I hope are very interesting and I hope can be answered by any teacher. Okay, so, but again, I want to make it as easy as possible. I want to try and do as much as I can for non-TOK teachers. You know, I'm very aware, you know, we've got to be practical about teaching. We have very, very major time constraints. We're all very busy. We're all trying our hardest to do what we can within our course, and we don't always have time to delve into the other parts, for example, TOK. So I wanted to make it even easier, not just give you 6 big questions, but also put the big questions into the context of the different DP subjects. So for maths, this would look like this. So we go from the original big question, which might be, how do our perspectives and biases shape our knowledge of the world? Very simple. That gets turned into how do our perspectives and biases shape our knowledge of mathematics for big question number 4. So you can see that it's very, very easy to adapt those original big questions for mathematics, putting them into the context of mathematics. And I hope what you have there are 6 very interesting questions that can be referred to constantly within the maths course, and which align to aspects of what is being done in mathematics, and hopefully make it more interesting, dare I say, more relevant to the real world, and more easily applicable to what's going on in the real world, about which I will talk a little bit later. Okay, so that's the way I teach TOK, and that's the way, you know, I try and ask other DP teachers, in this case mathematics teachers, to help me to do that. Okay, so just a little bit more about why we're trying to do this. I mean, I think that as it says there, drawing on TOK allows mathematics teachers to really enrich students' experiences in the course, and I think it allows you to tap into the four C's. I mean, you should see that. You should see how the four C's there align very nicely to the big questions. So that's why I think it's a great thing to do. And what I haven't put here, excuse me, is also, I think, a more critical approach to any subject. Increases the quality of work, increases the quality of IAs, increases the quality of examination answers, even in mathematics. And I think it's something that is really beneficial to students in any subject, including mathematics. Okay, so that's all lovely. We like all that, very nice, really nice. But how do you actually do it? So that's what I'm going to suggest, some actual tangible specific ways that we can actually do this. And I want to start with what I mentioned earlier. There are now 12 key concepts in TOK that the IB have identified, and it's in the new TOK guide. And these are concepts that are of particular significance for us in TOK. When I first saw them, I thought, okay, so what can we do with these 12 concepts? I like them, they're interesting. How can we use them though? And it occurred to me that they are a really nice structure, sort of scaffold, if you like, for accessing TOK if you're not a TOK teacher. Because again, all teachers, all DP teachers can draw on these words and discuss them within their subject. So those are the 12 words there. Again, don't need to read through them, but I'll try and put that into context. So how can we use those? Well, here's I've picked out a few here. So here are some quotes. I mean, I like using quotes. I like using them as a starting point for discussions. So here are some quotes on these different. I'll just move my head over to the other side. So these are some quotes on these different concepts. So certainty is a really interesting thing to look at in mathematics. Are we looking at certainty? Are we looking at something that we can be absolutely certain about? Albert Einstein had a nice thing to say there. As far as the laws of mathematics refer to reality, they are not certain. And as far as they are certain, they do not refer to reality. So this is a nice way of considering the nature of mathematical knowledge. What is it? Where is it? Where does it exist? I saw a program the other day with Hannah Fry, who I'll mention it again in a minute, and she asked that question: where do numbers live? And I think it's a great question. How can we be certain of them when they are abstract? It's a wonderful sort of idea, that a wonderful concept to look at with maths students, and making the bridge to TOK. Culture. I mean, also I think this links to objectivity and perspectives. David Hilbert said mathematics knows no races or geographical boundaries. For mathematics, the cultural world is one country, which I think is great. Although I think you can perhaps offer a counterclaim to that. I mean, I think what we do with mathematics might change and vary within different cultural contexts. Possibly also, I mean, you could even think about how mathematics varies in terms of, I don't know, base numbers, for example. We have different cultures using different base numbers, different cultures having a different concept of numbers. You have some very interesting indigenous people who have very different views of mathematics and numbers. So yeah, maybe he's right, but maybe we can test that and explore that in a little more detail. Justification. Thus, in a sense, mathematics has been most advanced by those who distinguish themselves by intuition rather than vigorous proofs. I mean, I think this is a really interesting aspect of mathematics. Mathematics is very intuitive in some ways, but on the other hand, our intuition can often completely lead us astray. And I'm sure that there are some great things you can do in mathematics. I mean, the Monty Hall problem is a really good example of that. Our intuition leads us completely astray when we decide between those three different doors, and that brings in probabilities and so on. So that's where I think justification comes in. True. I mean, truth itself, I think, is is really, really interesting in mathematics. It is mathematics the subject that gives us the truth. Mathematics, but Bertrand Russell said this, which is obviously brilliant from him. Mathematics may be defined as a subject in which we never know what we are talking about, nor whether we are saying it's true. Again, because of the sort of abstract nature of mathematics. I mean, you can apply it to things, but it itself, does it exist? Is it true? I think that's a really interesting, question. Marcus Du Sautoy, mathematics is a place where you can do things which you can't do in the real world. I think this relates to power, and I think that would be a really interesting quote to explore for your students. So it's a good one to finish off. So I mean, those are a few little examples of how the 12 key concepts I think work really, really nicely in mathematics, and you can use them as a basis of discussions and bring them in and infuse them into your scheme of work that you're using in mathematics. Okay, obviously there are a whole host of brilliant thinkers out there, and I'm by no means a mathematics expert, which you've probably worked out by now. So I wouldn't claim to be an authority on the kind of thinkers that form the basis of your course. However, there are a lot of thinkers out there who are really, really digestible and who discuss some very interesting topics for us working right now. All of these are TED Talks. I mean, we use TED a lot in TOK. They're absolutely wonderful for us as a resource. And there's quite a lot of material there which you probably used yourself on mathematics. So these are 4 talks that I have really, really enjoyed and that I think work really well in a TOK/mathematics context. Daniel Tammet is a brilliant thinker and has a completely different way of looking at and processing numbers, the nature of numbers. I mean, he ascribes different sort of colors and feelings and shapes and things to numbers. His brain works in an absolutely astounding way. So I think this is a great talk for any math student to have a look at. He also gives some incredible shortcuts in solving seemingly complex mathematical problems, and it's really amazing the way his brain works and how he shows us how his brain works in solving these problems. I think it's a brilliant talk that he gives us. Hannah Fry, who I have already mentioned, she's on the TV quite a lot. She's got quite an active role in social media. She's a very good speaker, very good communicator of ideas, and in this talk she thinks about whether we can apply mathematical axioms, rules to the most human of all feelings, love. Can we, which is interesting in itself, but it sort of raises the question: to what extent can we draw on mathematical rules in our everyday life? Can we use it to understand and analyze and predict how humans behave, which I think is a really interesting idea. There are quite a few talks on TED which apply mathematics to other areas of knowledge. This one is all about trying to apply mathematics to history. Again, it's Jean-Baptiste Michel is a really good speaker, really interesting to look at this talk. So it's another one that I recommend. And finally, this one, which I found quite recently, Eugenia Cheng, talking about how an understanding of abstract mathematics can help us to understand kind of moral issues in society. Things like why we get angry, things like why privilege and inequality exist in society. So this is a really good talk as well. Okay, so those I think are some examples of really nice thinkers. There are loads out there. I'm sure you draw on lots already, but making that bridge between mathematics and TOK is, I think, what these 4 people do very, very well. Okay, so one of the misconceptions of TOK from non-TOK teachers is that it's quite abstract. It's quite philosophical. It's not really set within the real world. It's a bit of a weird course. I suppose in some ways it is, but only because it's unlike all of the other courses and there's no exam. But TOK itself should be very, very much based in the real world. We don't like hypothetical examples to support our claims. We don't like sort of anecdotal evidence. We like real things that are going on in the world right now, contemporary problems, contemporary events, contemporary issues. Also the experiences of students. You know, I really like drawing on what my students are going through and processing, you know, within the classroom, outside the classroom. CAS is a fantastic source of knowledge for TOK, what they're doing in extended essay, what they're doing in all their other subjects, you know, and again, we're back to integration. So as much as possible, I design my lessons, I design my course around what's going on in the real world right now, try and make it as contemporary as possible to show students that TOK really matters. It's really important that the ideas that they learn can be applied to the real world. And this works for mathematics, real life situations for us in TOK. Here are a few that I've come across recently. So the first one, I don't know whether if you're not in the UK, you might not have seen this story, but there was I mean, it's happening in most courses, right? It happened in the IB diploma as well. But for the UK, our A-level results were more of a disaster, I think, than the DP. You know, there were some very strange results, or supposedly very strange results, that came through because the exam boards decided to use an algorithm to calculate the grades that they awarded for students. And this is just a fantastic story showing how mathematics/TOK is really, really topical and can be applied to the real world. And obviously it resonates a lot with students. So that's a really, really nice story for students to get their heads around. Second one is from a year or so ago, when those first images of the M86 black hole, it's incredible images that they created, started to appear in the media. And you know, we were all blown away by this image. Now, of course, what a lot of people didn't realize was you weren't just looking at a photo, you weren't just looking at an image that someone had taken through a telescope. This was mathematical data that they used to generate the image of a black hole. It was data taken from telescopes all around the world, and then processed, and we got the images that you saw. So what you're looking at there is mathematics rather than just the night sky. And I think that sort of that throws up some really interesting questions about science, about mathematics, about how we visualize this knowledge that we refer to as mathematics. So there are several different sources there. I mean, this featured, of course, in every single kind of media source in the world. It's a huge story. So those are four there that I looked at myself. It's sometimes seen as difficult to align mathematics with values and ethics. Values runs all the way through the TOK course. It's a big part of what we do. And here, I mean, I think is a really good story about how, again, police in the UK, we're talking UK again, use mathematics, use an algorithm to try and calculate the risks posed by individuals, and sort of act almost before they've done anything wrong. And it's really kind of shaky ethical ground there. Can we use mathematics to give us ethical knowledge? Can it be used, you know, very, very objective mathematical axioms, well, not very objective, totally objective mathematical axioms? Can we rely on those to give us solid knowledge about values and make value judgments? I think it's a really interesting story, really interesting idea. We can't escape COVID. Actually, this is a video, I think, a video and an article, excuse me, that I saw, and it really changed the way I thought about COVID. If you just understand the mathematics behind COVID, you realize how dangerous it is. It's almost all you need to understand why we need all the things that are going on in the world right now to combat it. So this is a really nice demonstration of how important mathematical knowledge is, and how it gives you an insight into something going on in the world. Finally, Bayes' theorem, which I have to say I don't have much of an understanding of, but I understand the significance of it and how extraordinary this is. and how it relates to the way in which we are generating ideas and knowledge via big data, and how this acts in a different way to our intuition. So again, we're going back to that idea about the relationship between intuitive knowledge and mathematics. So that's a really good story, which I saw quite recently. Okay, so those are just 5 examples of real life situations that work well in TOK and work well, I hope, in mathematics. I produce a newsletter, which if you're a member of the site, you'll be aware of, and every month I find 20 stories and I try and give some unpacking suggestions on how to use them with your students. A lot of those stories relate to mathematics, the natural sciences as well. I think the two are quite well linked. So every month, if you are a member of the website, you should have access to this newsletter, and you should be able to use stories like this in your classroom. Okay, so lastly, really, the last thing I wanted to mention was the way that we talk, the way that we discuss, the way that we debate things in TOK lessons. And as I've said, I think any kind of discussion is great. Listening to the opinions of students, listening to the ideas of students is what makes education a wonderful experience for students. It's deeply empowering for them to be listened to, and for you to respond to what they're saying, and to get a discussion going around your classroom between students. It's what I love the most, I think, about teaching. So any kind of discussion is great. However, in TOK, we try and frame our discussions around what we call knowledge questions. We try and explore knowledge questions, answer knowledge questions. Not always finding an answer, but discussing. That is the point, really. The journey is the destination, and all that kind of stuff. KQs, knowledge questions, can be divided into really 2 types. We have first order knowledge questions, which are about the world directly. They are what you do in your subject most of the time. They are what you do in the DP most of the time. So I'm a history teacher, or a former history teacher, and a first order question might be, why did World War I start, or why did World War II start, or why did Napoleon try and take over Europe, whatever it is. Those are the first order questions of history. Second order knowledge questions ask how we know. They're the questions that we are more interested in TOK. So again, applying that to history, you might ask the question, why do historians differ in their opinion of why World War I started, or why World War II started? What evidence is valid when it comes to assessing whether Napoleon invaded Europe because he had a, I don't know, psychological complex, and so on. You're asking how you know what you know. So that's what we're interested in, and that's the kind of thing that we look at. So your DP subjects, maths normally, the other subjects normally, you're looking most of the time at first order question, and we're trying to look at that second order knowledge questions. So so what does that mean? Let's try and put that into context. I mean, I think one of the most valuable and important aspects of mathematics that affect us, both in TOK and in society as general, are mathematical algorithms. And within mathematics, you might discuss, what are algorithms, how are algorithms produced, what is the thought process behind algorithms, etc., etc. So you'll look at the nature of algorithms and the creation of algorithms. In TOK, we might then think about, do algorithms represent objective knowledge? Are algorithms, do they provide us with morally valid decision-making processes? How do algorithms change over time, etc., etc. So here are 4 articles that are related to algorithms, and they're all, I think this is a fantastic topic to look at. Also links to computer sciences as well, I think. So the first one is brilliant. I mean, this is again, truth. We're looking at truth, or what is true. Kathy O'Neill is brilliant. It's a really short video. It's very, very simple. And she just looks at the fact that algorithms are created by human beings, therefore they cannot be objective because we are not objective. Okay, so they are all inherently biased, which I think would lead on to some fantastic discussions. Kevin Slavin, in the second one there, this is another TED talk. So it looks at the extent to which algorithms control our lives, with some really, really interesting real life examples there. So that's one worth looking at. The Algira article is actually a series of articles on algorithms, so you can do some really deep knowledge production there. Again, looking at the extent to which algorithms are used and affect our lives. So that's a really nice source as well. And the Wired article, I mean, I love Wired. I use it a lot. It's really, really good. Very, very relevant to mathematics, technology, and so forth. So again, they look at whether algorithms are a valid way in which we should produce decisions that have ethical consequences. So that's another really, really good one there. So, I think this is one example of a topic that you can approach in a second order way, not just thinking about how algorithms, I have trouble saying that, how algorithms are created, but then what they represent, how they should be used, and so on. So I think those are nice stories there. That's a nice topic for discussion. Okay, so that's it, really. Those are my suggestions, a few suggestions for how to use mathematics. If you are a member of the site, you have access to a lot more support for integrating TOK with mathematics and all of the DP subjects. The DP integration tool gives you a folder for every single DP subject except management. I keep forgetting that, I've got to do that. Certainly it includes one for mathematics. What I give you is a banner. You saw the banner earlier on in the presentation, so you can just print out the banner and stick it on your wall, and you have access to the 6 big questions which you can refer to within mathematics. You have access to a bunch of quotes that I think are quite interesting to initiate discussion. You have access to some resources linking to the 12 key concepts. I've got another document which has links to loads and loads of articles, media sources, podcasts, videos, etc., that you can use in mathematics/TOK. Then there's a list of TED Talks that you can draw on. These are resources that I'm adding to all the time, especially at the moment because I'm about to launch the new website, which I'll show you in a second. So the DP integration tool, I hope, allows any non-TOK teacher to draw on TOK to whatever extent they want. You don't have to go into huge amounts of detail. You don't have to spend that much time on it. You can, if you like, just print out the banner and stick it on your wall, and you're already integrating TOK. So I hope it gives some easy ways, some practical ways, some genuine ways of integrating TOK with mathematics. The newsletter as well, I've mentioned, which I produce every month. I look at 20 different stories going on in the world right now. I'm very late with the latest one. I've got to get it out. But yeah, I look at 20 different stories that relate to all aspects of the DP, and it gives you unpacking suggestions, questions that you can ask with your students, and how it relates to other aspects of the DP and TOK. I've also produced a huge resource called the Knowledge Lexicon, which gives a list of around 1,000 terms and concepts, many of which relate to mathematics. And I give you a link to articles, real life situations that you can explore that concept in. So again, that's another thing that you can use to integrate mathematics. The next slide is sort of sad at the moment with the situation as it is. I love visiting schools. I love talking to TOK teachers. I love talking to non-TOK teachers. I love giving workshops to students as well to try and get them enthusiastic about TOK, to try and give them a clear reason why they're doing this strange course. So passion and purpose is kind of the 2 ways in which I would describe my workshops with schools. I hope to get them up and running next year. Again, I've got a few bookings for next year, but I'd like to get out there to a lot more schools. So if you're interested in me visiting your school, but I also, of course, do this online, so you can get in touch with me about things that I can offer online to your school or in person, which I just love to do. Okay, so I wanted to give, oh, well, sorry, this is just a link to the membership page, so you can have a look at how to join the site. Very, very easy to get set up in a few seconds, and your whole school has access to loads and loads of resources for TOK. So I also wanted to just mention the fact that I am very close to launching a whole new website for theoryofknowledge.net. It's got a completely new design. It's got a lot more content. It's a lot more, I think, beautiful. It's really nicely laid out. So it's a lot more intuitive to use. There's a lot more things on there, a lot more features for members, be you a TOK teacher or a non-TOK teacher. So I hope it's gonna really make a big difference to the way you deliver the DP and TOK. So I'm really excited about launching that. It should be coming out next week. It's about 3 months late. I meant to launch it way back in the summer, but it's taken a lot longer than I thought it would to get it produced, but we are nearly there, and I'm very, very excited about launching it. So I was going to give you a sneak peek, so I might just very quickly go on to the site. So that is actually the last slide that I need to give you. So if I can, yeah, just find the screen that I was using. So here is, I'm going to share my screen again. Here is the new site, which is still in what we call a staging version. So that's what it looks like. You've got a whole new drop-down menu, which makes it a lot easier to use, I think. That's all the members area. New content on all of these pages. So it's going to be faster. It's going to be easier to use. And I think it's gonna be really it's gonna make a lot of people happy. I hope that are members. So we've got a really huge new section called exploration points, which give you access to a load of content for delivering the course and for non-TOK teachers as well. So that was a quick sneak peek of the new site, and I can't wait to get it launched. I think my developer can't wait to have it launched as well, because he's sick to the back teeth of it. All right, brilliant. Okay, so that's kind of it for today. Now, if there are any questions, I am very, very happy to take anything now and just discuss it. If you want to not throw any questions at me, that's fine. You can email me. I will be sending out the debrief email quite soon, and I know quite often I send that out and I get more questions coming in, so I'm very happy to wait to respond to any questions. Actually, someone's just said the examples are very nice. Well, thank you for that. Where will we be able to find the PowerPoint so that we can use the links? Well, the PowerPoint, the Google Slides presentation will be in the debrief email, so I will send that out to you. The links you will find there in the presentation, so you won't have any problems about that. Obviously, if you're a member, you have access to all of this and a whole lot more. And if you're having any trouble finding it, then you can just let me know. On the new site, I think it's even easier to use. It's even easier to log in, and I think it's going to be a greater experience. So someone else has just said how often we should focus on the TOK integrations in our lessons. So that's kind of up to you, and it kind of depends on your course. I mean, I've got to admit, as I've said, I'm definitely not a mathematics specialist. I was a history teacher. I also taught film. Before I started teaching TOK, I realized that as a history teacher, I was referring to TOK virtually every single lesson. I think that's easier to do in history than in mathematics. Although, I think, I mean, I do know some teachers that have a little sort of 5-minute segment of TOK in virtually every class. Because I do think it's relevant to pretty much everything you do. Maybe slightly less in mathematics, but I still think that you can mention TOK, all the time. I think if you're using these big questions, you can refer to the big questions, how what you are doing relates to one of the big questions. So I don't know, I don't think I'm answering the question, how often should you do it? I personally did it all the time in history. I think this is something that you can talk about with your TOK coordinator, talk about with your DP coordinator. I think they should be giving you guidance on how often you can be referring to TOK. If you're like me, you just like to start discussions in your class. So it's fun to draw on TOK, and it shouldn't be much extra work, if any extra work, if you've got support from other people in your class. In your school. Someone has just said, how do we give feedback to TOK discussions during our classes? How do you give it? I mean, I can tell you how I give it in TOK lessons. I always end a lesson with an exit question. Now, obviously, I'm teaching TOK classes, so I'm giving feedback on TOK all the time. How you do that in mathematics, I'm not sure, but I think TOK could work quite nicely as an exit question. Maybe as an extra question. I don't know whether you use exit questions. If you don't, then it's just an easy way to check for understanding at the end of a lesson. I always use post-it notes. Okay, so my last question of any lesson was I'll give you an example. Was a question that they write their response to and just stick on the wall. And so that means that you don't have to give feedback straight away. You can look at those, when they've left the classroom, excuse me, and then give feedback the next lesson. So as a maths teacher, I mean, one thing that you could do is ask an exit question which is directly related to the maths that you have discussed, maybe a first order question. But maybe ask also a follow-up question which might be related to TOK. So let me just show you an example of this. So this is a lesson that I teach on ethics. It's got the rather strange title of Feeding the Chickens. So this is an example of an exit question. Does empathy help or hinder us as we make an ethical decision? And then there's a second question there: what should the role of empathy be in the construction of our moral framework? So that's a true TOK lesson. And my students would just write their answers on a post-it, stick it on the wall before they leave the classroom. And so maybe you could do something like that in mathematics, or in, I don't know whether you're asking specifically for TOK or for mathematics. Okay, so that's probably the end of our discussion today. Thank you for those few questions. If you do have any other questions, then feel free to email me, and I can respond to them in the debrief email, which I will be sending out very soon. If you don't receive it over the next few days, maybe just email me to check what's going on. You might not. Well, you should be on the database, but sometimes emails go astray. It's been a real pleasure talking to all of you today. Thank you for joining me. I hope you have a good rest of the day. Our next integration webinar will be next Thursday, and we'll be looking at the arts. And then after that, in November, I have the first webinar ever for parents, trying to get them on board as well, because I think parents are a really important part, obviously, of the educational experience. And I think TOK is a fantastic way for them to get involved in the education of their children. So last question, will it be at the same time? Yes. I try and make all my webinars at the same time. So 11 o'clock, actually, yeah, 11 o'clock my time, but the clocks have changed here. So that will inevitably make the time elsewhere in the world slightly different. But yeah, at the moment, we're on Greenwich Mean Time in the UK, so it's 11 o'clock here, which may be an hour later for some of you out there. Okay, thank you very, very much for joining me. I hope to see you again in future webinars, and I'll be sending out the debrief email very, very shortly. Many thanks. See you soon.